Newbie here to finish up our lessons, our third lesson on hand tools. I'm going to go over the last 7 tools. So the first tool on these 7 is pipe clamp. It can also be called a bar clamp because sometimes instead of a round pipe like this is, you'll have a metal bar. This slides back and forth, and this will tighten and loosen to clamp stuff together. So one of the big things that we use this for is when we need to glue boards together to make a wider board, because wood only comes certain widths. If you want to make something wider, you have to glue boards together or use a plywood, which is not as durable and strong as solid wood. So if I wanted to take these 2 pieces of pine right here, glue them together, I would take some glue, which I'm not actually going to do, but I'll pretend I'm doing it. And you'd put glue on that end, and you'd smear it around. Put these 2 together. Bring the clamp up. Bring the other clamp up. Get them positioned. And then you would tighten this. Glue dries, and you have a wider board. And you can sand it. Okay? I'll leave this here because we're going to talk about this in a second. I'll scoot it over here. But those are the pipe clamps, used to clamp stuff together, usually while glue is drying or to hold something while you're working on it. Very handy. We have them from this thing. Next clamp I'm going to talk about is this clamp. This is a quick grip clamp. We don't usually use this for gluing wood together because you don't get that as tight of a pressure as you do by turning them. You squeeze this little handle, and it gets closer and closer and closer and closer together. So what we use these for is to hold something to the table while you're working on it. For example, I want to hold this down. I can put this here and tighten it, and it will hold it to the table while I'm working on it. So we use these as hold down, so hold stuff together, hold stuff down, not really gluing and clamping. When you do that, do it with the long part down like I did. Don't do it like this. This is pointing up. That's a safety issue. So when you use the quick grip clamps, always clamp stuff down with that. Okay, it's safer. The next clamp on the list here is the bench vise. Now the bench vise is hard for me to show you because it's attached to the bench here, but it has a handle that you turn, and you can open it up. And what this is used for is to a stronger hold on something that you really got to work on and put pressure. So I could put this board in here. I could tighten that down. It's going to hold it while I'm working on it. So bench vise found on the corner of the workbenches, used to hold material down while you're working on it. Stronger than that quick grip clamp there. Okay, so bench vise. Put that back in. Okay, so we talked about the pipe clamp, we talked about the quick grip clamp, we talked about the bench vise. The next one we're going to talk about is the glue scraper. Now, a glue scraper looks like this. Looks like it's actually a paint scraper. If you went to buy one of these, you would go ask for a paint scraper. You'd get it at your hardware store. We use it as glue scrapers. Remember when I glued this together a few minutes ago? Not really, I didn't put glue on it, but pretended. When you do that, this seam right here where the 2 pieces of wood went together, glue will squeeze out. Okay? We don't want to smear that glue all over the place, so we usually will wipe some of it off. But what we want to do is when it's dry, we want to take this, run it down that seam, and scrape any dry glue off. Because that dry glue, if you take it to the sanders, will soften and gum up the sanding belts, and we won't get the life that we want out of a sanding belt. It will ruin the sanding belt. So glue scrapers are used to scrape off the dry glue before you start processing it and sanding it on the equipment. Glue scraper. The next thing is a hacksaw. What's a hacksaw for? Okay, hacksaw is not for cutting wood. It's used to cut metal. Okay, so why do we have it as a woodworking tool in our shop? Because sometimes we have to cut metal, so it's a very handy tool to have around. For example, we need to cut a nail off, a screw off, a bolt off. We buy these long continuous hinges and we only need a certain size. We use this to cut that off. So a hacksaw, something to cut metal, very handy to have in a wood shop. Do not get this confused with the saw I showed you earlier, which was called a back saw with a B. Back saw right here. This is the back saw. Okay? This is a hacksaw with an H. Hacksaw. Hacksaw is used to cut metal. Alright, a couple more here. Next tool we're going to talk about is the putty knife. If you wonder why I keep looking over there, it's because I have my list so I make sure I'm going in the correct order. Okay? Putty knife. What's a putty knife used for? Okay? Well, it's not sharp like a chisel. Don't get this confused with a chisel. Putty knife is used to apply putty. So here I have a can of putty. Take the lid off with the corner of putty knife. Come in here. Get a little bit of putty on the putty knife. And when we apply it into the hole that we set earlier, remember that? We set that earlier when we demonstrated the nail set. And now we put that putty in there. As you can see, it blends in. Once it dries, we sand it, and then you don't see that nail hole or the nail. So that is the putty knife, used to take the lid off a can of putty and used to apply the putty to the project. Now, quick note. One of my biggest pet peeves is students not putting the lid tightly back on the can of putty. Okay, when you're using a can of putty, you take the lid off, you get your putty, you put it on, you push it down tight. Okay, you do not hit it with a hammer or anything. You don't have to do that. You just put your body weight, push it down, keep that lid closed. Okay, if you need more putty, you can reopen it and get more. If you leave it out, it will dry and ruin the whole can. Okay, $4 to $5 a can. Don't like it getting ruined. So please note, keep the lid on the putty. All right. I think the last tool on the list is this one, which we've been using and talking about. What is this? Cordless drill. It's not an electric drill. Doesn't have no electric cord you plug in. Okay? Has a battery operated, and they're very widely used in woodworking. So what do we use them for? We use them to put drill bits in to drill holes. We use them to put that Phillips screwdriver bit in to put screws in and out. We can put the countersink in it. Lots of things we can do with it. Okay, so that is the cordless drill. All right, so that's our 21 tools, and those will be used most of the time in the 4 years you'll have in my wood class. So with that said, I think that concludes our woodworking hand tool demonstrations. So newbie out.